Alright, guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, this is lesson 4 of the C++ programming series. My name is Adam Veazey. I'm going to be taking you through this lesson and the other ones in the series. This lesson is about storing data in your program. Alright, and what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to learn what a variable is, how to use variables at a basic level, and how to control what is stored in your variables, because if I just want a variable that's going to hold numbers, well, I want to keep characters and stuff like that out of it typically. Okay? What is a variable? A variable is just, it's data that's stored in memory. Alright, we're going to see how it's stored in memory in a second. And it's a value that can be changed. Alright, just like in algebra, right, where you can change the value of your variables a little bit. In computer programming, things are a little bit different than in algebra. Basically, in algebra, we say a variable is an actual number. In C++ programming, we say it's data stored in memory. Well, the variable is the memory address itself, and we're going to see how that works in just a second. First of all, how do we make a variable? Well, we make a variable with 3 pieces of information. The third piece is optional, but the first thing we have to assign to a variable is a data type. Alright? Our data type controls what type of information is stored in our variable and how much memory is used in our variable. We're going to see this a little bit later. I've got to give my variable a name. There are certain rules for naming variables. We're going to go over that in the next lesson, because I just want to get you guys used to what a variable is right now. The variable name itself is really just the memory address. Alright, the compiler at runtime, or excuse me, the program at runtime picks an empty memory address and stores whatever you tell it to store in there. I have an initial value. This is called initializing your variables. This is optional, but it's a really good idea, because if I initialize my variable, I know what's in that memory address. I know what's stored in that variable, where if I don't initialize my variable and I try to use it later on, I don't know what could be in that memory space. It could be nothing. It could be some junk left over from some other process or something like that. So I really want to initialize my variables at every opportunity that I get. Alright, so if I want to create a variable, now that I know how to make one, how do I create one? Well, here we go. The data type, this particular variable, is an integer. Alright, and integers are just whole numbers. They can be negative, they can be positive, but they're just whole numbers. Okay, you can't have any decimal point or anything after the decimal point, anything to the right of the decimal point. So I'm creating a variable called bullets, alright, to describe how many bullets I have. I'm initializing this variable to the value of 8. Okay? In reality, what I'm doing is I am setting aside some space in memory for an integer, and I am naming it bullets, and I am storing the value of 8 in that memory address. What the memory address isn't important at this point in the lesson or in the series. We'll get into that a little bit later. I'm going to show you next lesson how to actually tell what memory address is corresponding to which variable, and that'll come in handy when we talk about pointers down the road. So this box here just represents some memory address, or aka the variable known as bullets. Alright, so memory address, I'm going to call it bullets so I don't have to remember the memory address, and I've stored the value of 8 in this memory address. Now, our program for this lesson, our little program for this lesson, is going to display text to the screen, just like our last program did, but we are going to display the values stored in the variables. We're going to have 2 variables. We're going to have a variable for bullets, and we're going to have a variable for sandwiches. Alright, because ammo and food are important in the zombie apocalypse. So let's go through and let's make the code for this. Let me see, I got it up here. go. No. Yep, here we go. Alright, let me increase the font size on this just a tad bit. That's a little bit better. We saw from last lesson that we have the include IO stream, which allows us to use the input-output library that's built into C++. I've added this since the last lesson, and this is using namespace std semicolon. Alright, and what this does is it eliminates the need for us to put the std : cout, std : std : cout, that type of thing. So we can avoid doing all that. It avoids a little bit of typing, and every time you can avoid typing a little bit, you avoid interjecting errors in your programs and stuff, because if you put a semicolon instead of a colon, the compiler will kick that out. You got to fix it, everything else like that. And I think it makes your code just a little bit more readable. Yeah, some people would argue with that. I have my main function. Alright, my main function has a open curly bracket and a closed curly bracket to it. Okay. Integer means that an integer is going to be returned to this function when it ends. I have declared two variables. One is a data type of integer named bullets, and I've set it equal to 8, just like we saw on the slide. And then I have another variable here called sandwiches. It is a data type of double. Double means that you can have a decimal point and numbers to the right of the decimal point. So you can split things up. You can have fractional amounts. Okay, and we can split a sandwich up 2-4 ways or whatever. Bullets, we really can't do that. You can try, but you won't have a bullet left over afterwards. So these are the best data types for the variables. Bullets you can't split up, so they should be integers. Sandwiches can be split up, so we're going to make it a double data type. Now, I'm going to use the cout statement, just like we did in the last lesson, to output to the screen how many supplies do we have. And then you see this \n. Okay, this \n is just the equivalent of pressing the enter key. Alright, so it takes me down to the next line. Instead of having to do this number here like we did last lesson, where we did end L, it's the same thing. Alright, it's just a little easier to do. Let me delete that out of my program. There we go. And then you see that I have cout, we have, and then a space, 2 less than signs, and then my variable bullets. Alright, so I'm going to print the value that is stored in the variable bullets to the screen using this. Notice how there's no quotation marks around. Alright, because I want it to print the value that's stored in bullets, not the word bullets. And then after that, we have 2 less than signs, and I have some quotation marks, and a space, and then the word bullets, period, /n, which takes me down to the next line. So this bullets, or this word bullets, is in quotation marks, so it's going to print the word bullets to the screen. Very necessary distinction to make is that this bullets will print the value of bullets to the screen. This bullets will print the word bullets to the screen because it's contained within quotation marks. Okay, these are called string literals, meaning it will actually literally print what's in the quotation marks, except for the end that's called an escape character. I'll probably do a side lesson about that in a little while. Okay. This line of code is the same as the one for bullets, except for it's talking about sandwiches. We also have, and then it will print the value for the variable sandwiches on the screen, and then inside quotation marks I have the word sandwiches. So the word sandwiches is going to print, because it's inside quotation marks, to split among us. Alright, and we're going to be able to split the sandwiches up here, because sandwiches is of a data type double. Okay, we're going to see the difference here. Next lesson, we're going to be doing some math with our variables. I have my system pause so that it actually stays up on the screen. And I have my return 0 that returns a value of 0 when main finishes to say, hey, everything went okay, there were no errors or anything like that. Let me run this thing. Go. If it asks you if you want to build it, say yes. I checked the box that said don't annoy me with that anymore. And here we go. Let me increase the font size on it so we can actually see it. There we go. How many supplies do we have? We have 8 bullets, alright, because 8 was stored in the variable bullets. We also have 5 sandwiches because 5 was stored in the variable sandwiches to split among us. Press any key to continue. And that's really it for variables. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with variables. If it's a number variable, you can do mathematics with it and everything like that. We're going to look at more stuff like that in the next lesson. So in this lesson, we learned what a variable is, we learned how to use variables, and we learned how to control what is stored in a variable. We learned that a variable is just a memory address that we've stored something in. We've learned how to use variables because we can assign a value to a variable with the equal sign. We can either do that when we initialize the variable or when we get user input. We can store that information in a variable as well. And we learned how to control what is stored through data types. In the next lesson, I'm going to ask you how many bullets you have and how many sandwiches you have. We're going to input that information at runtime, meaning when the program itself is running, and we're going to learn how to get user input, and then we're going to learn how to manipulate that input. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.